We have a great audience still. We still have 150 people watching this right now. So appreciate all of you tending in, learning how smart manufacturing is impacting technology and culture. In case you missed the first few minutes of this conversation, we're all here together as a result of CESMII. And John, thank you for putting this together. And then Jillian in the background as well, who really did all the work. I know you're listening to this, Jillian. Shout out to you. Thank you so much for getting everyone connected here. But I want to leave some time for some questions and answers at the end. So as we go through the audience here, if there are questions, please put them in chat, and we're going to go ahead and try and answer them. One of the things I want to kick off right away is I always love hearing this from all the different thought leaders. What are you most excited for in 2022 that we're seeing adapt or impact manufacturing the most? And we're kind of going to open up to more of a full panel conversation now. So does anyone have something that they're seeing that they're really excited for happening in the next year, besides building out, your own smart manufacturing innovation center, looking outside that you're seeing in the industry?
Yeah, I'd love to start, Jake, just because one of the things that's so essential to manufacturing in this age is the worker, and yet the worker has been very much on the periphery of smart manufacturing up to this point. And as COVID became a thing in early 2020, and as manufacturing sort of reconfigured itself to try to figure out how to adapt to these bizarre new requirements, these new safety requirements, these new environmental requirements, all of a sudden the worker became a much more central component to manufacturing, and keeping that worker informed and training that worker to become more productive more quickly because of the churn throughout the workforce. And so that entire dynamic has only accelerated over the course of the last year and a half to 2 years, and I think represents a huge opportunity for manufacturers to differentiate themselves, to drive productivity by creating more competitive and more engaged workers. And that means that they become a real part of the value stream. And now the real challenge we have, those of us in the sort of education and the technology world, which is where all of us here at this sort of Smart Manufacturing Innovation Center universe connect or intersect, is how we can help the technology and the workflow and the person connect. There are enormous complexities, especially for the large manufacturers, in terms of all the different information systems that they sustain and support moving forward. But that worker and how they can become part of that digital thread, and how they can become part of the value add sort of innovation process for the plant floor, that to me represents a huge and exciting opportunity for us.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I'm going to highlight a question real quick. This is from Michael Hernandez. How important is force feedback in robotics? I'll take this question just because robots is a big thing that I focus on. I was at the Association for Advancing Automation's A3 Business Forum beginning of this year. And really, there's a lot of exciting stuff happening in the robotics industry. Last year, we saw a 28% increase in robotic sales here in North America. And for the second year in a row, we saw non-automotive robotics actually beating out the automotive industry in installed applications. So there's a lot of growth, but that second number is showing that there's a lot of adaptation for robotics in new industries. Going to your question of importance of force feedback, it's application dependent, but what we're seeing now as smart manufacturing evolving, there's a lot more applications that are becoming more flexible and working alongside operators or robots, or what we're calling doing workers' tasks, right? At the end of the day, we want people to work with a robot, not like a robot. So a robot has to replicate a lot of times what human tasks are doing. And by doing so, we get a lot of feedback, force feedback being one of them, artificial intelligence and AI deciding what the robot's going to pick, for example, at a depalletization application is another. But force feedback is extremely important because it's really creating one of the senses that make automation flexible beyond just more of a discrete path of motion. So that was a comment from the chat. If there's more comments in chat, guys, please feel free to ask them. We have a panel of experts up here willing to answer those questions. And of course, if you are enjoying the conversation, click that like button. It's right next to it. We love to see your reactions. We'd love to see how you are engaging, and feel free to share this conversation as well. Another question that came up was, how can trade high school students be reached for jobs in manufacturing? How can we work on the perception of manufacturing to get young people into the manufacturing industry? I would love to hear someone here to answer that question.
So I'll take that as a starter, Jake. One of the things that we're doing at the Digital Foundry is we're looking at what we're calling the whole pipeline of talent. We have programs through the Penn State New Kensington campus with 14 local K through 12 school districts, working with their educators to bring more content into the classrooms. The Digital Foundry is going to be an asset for them. We have already started putting in place some after-school programs, a summer camp where we're going to bring them in more of an exploratory format, getting them excited and interested. They're getting some content in the classrooms, but we want to bridge between that and what they will actually see in the manufacturing environment. And our training, while we have content for our traditional university students, again, we're building our training around that pipeline where we have content that's at what we're calling level 0, which is high school level, and it includes not only those who are college bound, but content that's going to be very hands-on training for those that are looking to go into the trades. We're partnering with our local career and technical center in our community, as well as getting some content that we're putting in the classrooms that then they can come to the Foundry and take what they've learned there and bring it with them. So I think that that's really critical to start early on getting an interest. There has been a stigma about manufacturing, and I think that, again, technology will help to make it more intriguing, more interesting. It's cleaner, it's safer, it has more of that tech for those digital natives who've grown up with electronics in their hand, and I think that those of us who have made a career here need to be ambassadors. I look at my career and I think that I would do it again in a heartbeat. There's nowhere else I could have built the experience, the exposure, the travels, the connections with brilliant people. So it's an exciting place to be. And so I think that we need to be ambassadors for that.
Absolutely. Ryan, you want to add on to that?
Yeah, I was just going to pipe up because I think this complements what John was saying and Sherri was saying about, I think there's a lot of the technology players are rolling out technologies that are more and more do-it-yourself. Ragu was mentioning that the need for a data scientist versus putting the tools in the hands of almost everyone. The ability for a average worker, an engineer, a technician, an electrician, a pipe fitter, to add value by using these technologies and do it in a way that is so much more application aware, as opposed to like I'm just there to do one job. I've got to wire up the sensor, and then someone else has got to come in and turn the sensor on. Well, now I may not even have to wire that sensor up. I can take a battery-powered sensor with a magnet, stick it on the wall, and all of a sudden, what used to be just sensing light will sense heat, humidity, vibration, etc., and it derives so much more insight. And that person that might typically not have been part of the conversation at all can all of a sudden add value and make an impact in a way that used to take a small army to actually do. And I think that from especially on the skilled trades, like I think about a lot of these initiatives slow down in their deployment because of the complexities of actually putting the technology in, as opposed to getting value out of that solves a specific problem or a specific application case. And I think that the people that can actually affect that change most quickly are the operators, the people that are familiar with the lines, or the skilled trades who are actually there every day working on whatever it is that they're working on, and can unlock and enable some of these technologies. So I think there's the ability to impact. We joke at FZ that we like to call ourselves blue collar McKinsey, because we can add as much value as McKinsey Consulting, but we have a whole different practical side of how we do it. And to me, that's the exciting part. That's the thing that to me, 2022 is all about, is bringing a whole different set of people into the conversation, and the ability to actually transform with the support of a lot of these companies that are actually now trying to do something. So it's a really cool time to be in the space.
Absolutely. So I have time for about 2 more questions, then we're going to wrap it up with you, John. So this might be a question for you. What is the biggest bottleneck for manufacturers who are working to better exploit their existing data? Or anyone else on the panel who wants to add to that?
Yeah,
well, I can. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Ragu. I'll follow up after you.
No. Go ahead, please.
So I love that question. I was chomping at the bit to try to address that, because frankly, that's at the heart of our mission here at CESMII. The notion that whether you're a small manufacturer, mid-sized manufacturer, or large manufacturer, you're pretty much constrained by the same thing, and that is for the size and scale of your operation. There's a massive headwind around the sort of legacy approach to implementing smart manufacturing systems. If you're a large manufacturer, you have dozens and dozens of custom proprietary manufacturing systems critical for manufacturing operations, critical for producing parts this shift on this date at this point in time. And so each one of those represents a measure of complexity that represents enormous cost to sustain. And so anytime a great innovative new vendor comes along, and there's literally hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of new great IoT platforms and AR, VR vendors and AI machine learning vendors out there with great innovative new approaches, you as a manufacturer are left looking at the existing mess of systems that you have to sustain, wondering how you can deploy at scale another box, another proprietary solution. So that sort of headwind around integrating new innovative solutions with an existing set of complex and costly systems is a massive, massive headwind. If you're a small manufacturer, you likely don't have the kind of capital and the people on staff to look at some of those great innovative solutions. And so for you, it becomes a matter of cost and complexity as well. And so it's beholden on us. And I love your comment, Sherri, and Simon Jacobson from Gartner chimed in as well, talking about advocacy and servant leadership. It's up to us to try to bring this ecosystem forward, the vendors, the technology providers, the machine builders, together to sort of leave the proprietary thinking behind and work together to solve some of these complexity issues. That's at the heart of what we're doing. That's at the heart of what the Smart Manufacturing Innovation Centers are all about, to bring education and bring technology and bring cultural transformation to the marketplace at scale where the manufacturers are. And collectively, I think we can work on addressing these vital issues that will lead towards the democratization of smart manufacturing.
Yeah, Ragu, would you like to add on to that?
Great answer, John. So, but I'll add one more thing. It's at much lower level. So, assuming that industry already have the infrastructure to collect the data, they have the sensors, the platform for compute, for storage, and all of that. One thing that that is very essential to using the data is what kind of collection methods they are using, the quality of data they are collecting, the quantity of data, and also the diversity of data. So, that's much more at the lower level.
Fantastic. I would say that just to tag on to that, I think the data without the context, data without the rest of the environment and around it is less useful. But the data isn't useful in and of itself. It's what problems we're trying to solve. Are we trying to improve inventory turns? Are we trying to improve OEE? Like, what is the thing that's actually going to have a business impact? And then you have to move down the pipeline from there. What's the data? What are the insights that are actually going to be actionable to move the business? Because if you're not moving the business, you're not going to get any support from the organization.
Yeah.
If I can add one brief comment as well, innovation has never been an issue for U.S. manufacturing. I think innovation is the hallmark of U.S. manufacturing. We're solving problems today like we've solved problems 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago. The problem is how can we do so with a significantly reduced level of cost and complexity? That's the problem that I think we can address collectively as an ecosystem.
Fantastic. Nick, I was going to actually, we haven't heard from you in a while, so I was going to cue this question up for you, and this will be our last question.
I'll kick it off, right?
Yeah,
so
perfect.
I think prior to the pandemic, manufacturing was moving along and there was strong interest. But as everyone has seen, it's shone a light on the fragility of our supply chains, national security implications, et cetera. So I think we are poised for bipartisan congressional support, senior leadership support to reshore, onshore, and reinvest in our manufacturing capabilities, supply chain. So I think we're at the birth of another cycle of growth for manufacturing domestically.
Yeah, absolutely. So as we wrap up the conversation, I encourage all of you who are watching us throughout this, go to the attendees, connect with all of these people here on LinkedIn so you can see all the speakers who are part of this conversation. Would love for you to connect with all of them and continue these conversations. John, as we wrap up with just a few minutes left, any other big takeaways you want for our audience in regards to the SESMII organization?
Yeah, I would say this. If you look at the collection of leaders, thought leaders, servant leaders here on this conversation today, even the folks in the audience, I mean, I recognize many of the names and the faces I see here. This represents an enormous set of important industry knowledge and perspective that I think will allow us to drive this industry forward. SESMII is about a vendor agnostic environment to build those lighthouse applications, to build that lighthouse collaboration, to facilitate those partnerships. And I saw one of the questions in the thread before about how can I, as a small startup, get engaged? And that's what this ecosystem, that's what this group of smart manufacturing innovation centers is all about. By industry, by technology, by affinity group like small, mid-sized manufacturing, working together to bring the ecosystem forward to solve important ecosystem problems. We here at SESMII are privileged to have $140 million of taxpayer funds to deploy with through our partnerships and through our smart manufacturing innovation centers, and to come alongside those existing organizations who are already doing great work and try to align around some of these really important ideas. And I think Sherri said it first, the network of networks. This represents an opportunity for us to bring the best and the brightest thinkers and minds and innovators together, not just for our own good. And I firmly believe that all of us have to focus first on our own business models and furthering our collective respective ways of funding our organizations. That's why we get paid where we get paid. But at the same time, if we can do that in a way that advances the greater good, why would we not do that? And so I would just urge everyone to connect, as you said, Jake, to get engaged, bring what you have, your energies, your thoughts, your innovative ideas to this body of smart manufacturing innovation centers and SESMII, and let's work together to make a real difference in 2022.
No, that's fantastic. And if people want to learn more, they can go to www.sesmi.org. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Perfect. Got the cue in. Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for joining us, especially thank you panelists. Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Sherri. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, John. Thank you, Ragu, for all joining us. After we end the stream, go ahead and stick around for just a few minutes. I have a few things I want to take away with you guys. But for the audience here who joined us for this entire panel, we really appreciate your time. The conversation does not stop here, though. Like I said, connect with the people here, reach out to SESMII. I noticed there's quite a few comments going through the chat to learn how you can get involved in growth in the manufacturing industry. Growth in smart manufacturing isn't done by a product or a program. It's done as an entire community within the manufacturing space. So until next time, we'll stick around. Thank you for joining another episode of Let's Talk Manufacturing. I'm Jake Hall, the Manufacturing Millennial, and we'll see you again soon.